There is absolutely no logical reason for comics material to be considered acceptable reading for adults if printed in a magazine, but not if it is printed in standard comic book form. Take a look at comic books today, and it is evident that almost none of the reasons that comic books originally appealed to children are valid any longer. Consider, comic books may still be colorful, but they are certainly no longer cheap, due to the combined efforts of inflation and a shrinking industry, forcing publishers to boost prices in order to stay profitable. On the average, a comic book costs about $3, a far cry from all in color for a dime. Nor are comic books anywhere near as widely available as they once were. Odds of finding a significant selection of comic books at a bookstore, newsstand, supermarket, or drugstore are pretty slim. Specialty shops and the internet are the only realistic option for comic book readers and collectors. Graphic novels can be found at bookstores and a handful of other retailers, but generally, comic books have been written off in favor of magazines. Most stores don't find them profitable enough for the space they occupy. Additionally, the reasons for the perception of comic books as a childish or second-rate art form no longer hold water, if they ever did in the first place. The myth that comic books are solely superhero power fantasies is untrue, and historically never was true. Other genres have almost always far outnumbered superheroes. Today's comic book artists also take much more pride in their work than many of the workers in the art shops of the early days. Comic books are a long-pursued dream for them, rather than a last resort or drudgery to endure on the way to greater things. Comic books are generally not produced in the same sweatshop-type manner any longer. Collaboration among artists and writers is still common, but it is much more of a joint effort than in the past. Pencilers, inkers, and colorists act as much more of a team working toward a singular vision rather than steps along an assembly line. Further, a great many comic books are the work of single individuals, the products of individual artistic visions. One person does all of the writing and art and generally decides upon the entire course of the story. They have a great passion for the form, and most wouldn't be happier doing anything else. The maturation of the entire form is unmistakable wherever you look. Prejudice against the comic book form continues in the face of all these changes and advancements. It is especially apparent in the legal system, where numerous unfair and unreasonable verdicts are passed against comic book artists and retailers. Such rulings would almost certainly never be made against other media, which are either more respected than comic books or have more money at their disposal to fight long and costly legal battles than comic book professionals do. The Comic Book Legal Defense Fund exists to aid the comic book industry in these First Amendment violations. But unfortunately, the outcomes aren't always positive. Take, for instance, the cases of Mike Diana and Jesus Castillo.